Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video, and this video is going to be another installment in my Moon to Earth to Mars video series that I'm putting together. In the last video, we got everything worked out so that we would arrive at Mars at the line of nodes between Mars and Phobos, and we did our aero capture, so we came down into the atmosphere of Mars and got captured by Mars and brought our apoapsis altitude down so that it was basically the same altitude as Phobos. Kind of overshot it a little bit, brought the altitude down a little bit too much, but that's okay. It's still really close, as you can see here. And we also used the atmosphere to steer ourselves into plane with Phobos. By the time we exited the atmosphere, we were only 0.1 degree out of plane, and I took care of that last tenth of a degree of plane alignment at the node. So now we are ready to finish the rendezvous, so let's go ahead and do that. What we need to do is we're not going to catch up to Phobos for several orbits, so we're going to come up here to apoapsis and we're going to raise the other side of our orbit, because currently our periapsis still would have us dragging through the atmosphere, and we don't want that. So let's come up to apoapsis here in 5,000 seconds. And we're almost to that point. And I'm not going to worry about fuel efficiency in this flight as far as, rotating the vessel and using 10x and all that, just because we have so much fuel left over that we don't need to be that careful about things. So let's go to prograde using the inefficient autopilot. And when the apoapsis time is just a second or so, about like that, go ahead and translate up our periapsis. Actually, let's use a little bit of main engine for that. And let's bring it up to, so we're a couple hundred kilometers, so we're up out of the atmosphere. Okay, about like that. And actually, if you're curious what that cost me, I should have wrote it down, but I can actually tell you. Let me actually make this larger. I have a simple spreadsheet I made a long time ago that tells you the cost of raising and lowering your orbit. My altitude there starting was 40 kilometers. My periapsis rather was 40 kilometers. And my apoapsis is 5757. And I set a target PEA of 200 kilometers. So that maneuver to bring up my my PEA up from 40 to 200 cost me about 26.5 meters per second. And this calculation is extremely accurate. So basically, if I wanted to, I could have done this ahead of time, and then I could have put in 26.55 into burn time calculator, hit burn, and I would have went from 40 to 200. So it's just kind of cool to know what things are costing you, so you don't have to, so you're not guessing all the time. Okay, let's, again in TransX, take a look at orbits to intercept, and let's now see that since we've changed the timing, let's kind of reset it back to 0. And let's see how many orbits we have to go around in order to have a good close encounter with Phobos. So that's 5 orbits, 6, 7, 8. That's too much. So let's see if we can work it out a little sooner. So 5 orbits, we're going to be within 3,200 kilometers. Let me think about that for a second. So, okay, so first of all, let's just orbit 5 times, and then we'll set up a maneuver to do the rendezvous after that. Because if we're within 3,000 kilometers, we should be able to do a maneuver for a reasonable cost to get over to Phobos. So let's go around. And I'm not actually sure if this counts down. It doesn't look to me like it does. Well, maybe it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, it is counting down. So we're just going to go around Mars a few times until orbits to intercept is down to 0. Then we'll set up some kind of maneuver to rendezvous. Now you can work out the timing so that as soon as you leave the atmosphere, after you do your aero capture, you can catch Phobos at apoapsis. You can do that, but it's pretty difficult to get that timing worked out. And doing it this way frees you from the stress and obligation of having to work out that timing. And the fact is, you're not using any fuel to orbit Mars. So this may not be as sexy as it would be to, get aero captured and then boom, catch Phobos on your next orbit around. I agree that that's a lot cooler, and as far as planning goes, it's neater. But
rotation.
But in terms of practicality, due to the limitations of the MFDs that we have, this method here, this is what Dimitri actually showed me. This method is easier by far to just let time do a lot of the work for you. Okay, so we're now at orbits to intercept 0. So let's set up a maneuver. And we'll view the maneuver on this side. And we'll view the encounter over here. Okay. Now I'm just going to start working with the variables. For one thing, I kind of know that I need to raise my orbit a little bit, so I'm going to start with a little bit of prograde, see if that helps. And outward. And I'll work on trying to minimize the cost here as much as I can. But first, let me just kind of get the closest approach down. Okay, also, I think it will be best if I do this burn at periapsis. So let me tell Transx that I want to do the maneuver here in, when I'm down here at periapsis. I can only imagine that would be the most ideal time, since I need to raise this side of my orbit. So let's actually get rid of the outward here. Okay, that raises the orbit a bit, but our timing is really far off still. We're on the opposite side of Mars. Okay, I want to do this maneuver as cheaply as I can, so I'm going to orbit Mars more if I have to, which obviously I will have to. So then what I want to say is, instead of doing the maneuver at my next periapsis, what if I basically do the maneuver 2 or 3 orbits from now instead? Still way off, so let's go forward and time some more. There we go. Total cost. And don't have a heart attack. I'm going to see if I can do this cheaper. Okay, so that's a lot of outward. And that tells me basically the timing is off. So I might be able to do the same prograde burn for about 20 meters a second, but if I do it at a different time. Okay, no, it's got to be that orbit. Okay, but what if we just orbit some more? There we go. So that's pretty far out into the future. Make sure that we have enough locks for it. But by doing it that way, we get a rendezvous for only 23 meters a second or thereabout, something really close to that number. But let me check the time. Make sure that we're not going forward too far, because that's 4 days, 8 hours, and we're saying that we're doing the maneuver 273,000 seconds from now. What? I did that wrong. There's no way that's right. 273,000 seconds divided by 86,400, 3 days. It's going to use up most of our locks, but we'll go ahead and do that. So this is way off, and by the time we go forward that many days, the whole maneuver is probably going to be useless, but we'll do an update. So let's just warp time forward.
Translation. Rotation.
And that way we can do the maneuver for, just 20 or so meters per second instead of a couple of hundred. I guess if you were a human, you would say, look, I just want to land this stupid thing. I've been in space long enough. Let's just spend the extra 100 delta V, please. Okay, now VW over to maneuver, and unfortunately this probably won't be very accurate anymore, so we kind of have to take whatever we get now because we're just out of time. But we're still pretty close. So let's see if we can adjust the date of that maneuver by just a little bit. And yeah, it does look like it helps to do it a little bit later in the orbit. That's good. Quite a bit later, so about here. That's odd. We'd think it'd be more efficient to do it at periapsis, but anyway, that's what it's showing. So now let's see what we have to do to bring down the distance. And we want to watch our encounter velocity too. So what we might be able to do is, let's reset the prograde for now. Let's say, what if we just use outward? Can we do the same thing and maybe have a cheaper cost overall? No. Let's change the time of the burn. So that's not helping there with the outward. Let's go with prograde then for sure. Actually, I wonder if AutoMin can figure that out. I guess there is no AutoMin in this particular setup. Okay, what about a combination of outward and prograde? Total cost 32. Total cost 55. Prograde. Again, watching the encounter velocity, I'd like it to be as low as possible because this is basically how much fuel we're going to have to burn when we encounter Phobos in order to get captured, or rather in order to get into orbit around Mars when we're still by Phobos. Okay, maybe a little bit of plane change at this point. Let me get rid of the plane change, get rid of the outward. Change the time of the burn again. See, with just prograde, we're going to get a better cost to do the maneuver, but it's driving our encounter velocity up to 705, which is going to cost more overall. So we would get this burn for 65, but then we would have a 705 meter per second encounter velocity. So I think the better way to go is to go ahead and do the burn earlier. And then we're going to, let's start by erasing prograde for now. Well, not erase it, but let's take out a lot of that prograde. And let's start with plane change this time instead of outward. I thought we were in plane. Why? I guess I got off at some point. Actually, we're at a node right now, so actually let's do this.
Translation. Rotation.
Let's fix our relative inclination a little bit, since we just happen to be here.
Translation. Rotation.
And then we'll do an update here on the maneuver. Because I can do this plane alignment for a meter or two with translation. Now we're aligned and we don't need all this plane change. And we need to do an update here though. Now let's see what we can accomplish. Now we need some outward for sure. That's the wrong way though. Okay, we are basically there. Okay, now I think if I work out the rendezvous so that it's a little bit farther backwards, then we'll have a lower encounter velocity. Let's check our total cost here. 143. I don't know why that went up so much. But let's take out some of this outward. So we're saying that we'll encounter Phobos closer to apoapsis. That should bring down the encounter velocity. Okay, now prograde. Okay, that has us basically running right into Phobos. Encounter velocity is 562. It's not going to get much better than that. I would have thought I could do better than that on the delta V cost, but before I commit to this burn, let me just think about it for a second. Because we're putting in a lot of outward. I think the only way I'd be able to beat the cost would be to orbit a bunch more times, and we don't have the time for it. We're down to, just like 1 day of locks or something. But we're having to put in quite a bit of outward in order to change the shape of our orbit so that Phobos has enough time to catch up to where we are, and that's why this cost is as high as it is, because otherwise we would only need just a few meters per second to raise our orbit. But I think this is as good as it's going to get, so let's commit to this burn. 2,000 seconds out. Let's warp time forward. Get closer, we'll have to do an update. Coming back around to Mars. Okay, we're 500 seconds out. Let's go back to the maneuver and do an update. You can see how much things change. So let's just tinker with the variables a little bit and dial everything back down, and there we have it. Okay, so view to target, bring up the auto center. So many variables. There we go. And we'll also bring up burn time calculator, and we'll have it get the maneuver. And let's
rotation.
Kind of get rotated around. Wait a minute. This could be a problem. I can't burn this. Cancel. I'm facing straight into Mars. This can't be right. Let me go to 0.1 for a second and check. It actually might be okay. I'm at 200 kilometers. It's definitely not ideal. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Control S to save. VW over to the target view.
Translation. Rotation.
Actually, auto center. Burn time calculator. Hopefully this doesn't push me down into the Martian atmosphere. If it does, then this is a complete flop. This is definitely not the ideal solution. But we're only burning 90 meters a second, so I think it'll be okay. Yeah, should be fine. Okay, auto center off, VW over to maneuver off.
Translation.
And bringing the closest approach down. Okay, so the next order of business is to rendezvous with Phobos at our apoapsis and then do the kind of, it's not, I guess you wouldn't really call it an orbit insert, but it's more of a braking burn next to Phobos, although technically braking is almost the wrong term too, because we're actually going to be accelerating, we're going to be increasing our velocity. But it's basically just a rendezvous maneuver. But we're close to 30 minutes on this part of the video, so I will save that for the next part. If you like the video, like, dislike it. Leave a comment down below if you would, please, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I also have a link to my Facebook page. It's in the description down below. Check that out as well, and I will see you in the next part.